have set the example, and we want to follow it.
My hope is that the Bush Center will always serve as a place where timeless principles are celebrated, protected, and promoted. We've had a great start. Now we must make sure our mission endures for generations to come.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President and CEO of the George W. Bush Presidential Center, Ken Hirsch.
Good evening, and welcome to Engage at the Bush Center, presented by NexPoint. We're grateful to NexPoint's support in endowing this great series. We welcome all of you here in the auditorium and those who are watching on our live stream. Our Engage series encompasses a wide variety of programs. We bring national and international experts and newsmakers. We often explore important policy connections to the policy work of the Bush Institute, all of which is on our website at bushcenter.org that you can check out. We also work on our special exhibits. Liberty and Laughter is the special exhibit in the museum now. We are holding it open late, and you'll be able to exit and see it on your way out. I wouldn't miss it if you haven't seen it already. It's a lot of fun. There are also common denominators to all of our programs. We want to increase your understanding. We want to bring insightful and fun and unique topics, and we want to do things that only a presidential center can do, and that is to bring together, using our convening power, topics and people that you wouldn't otherwise get to see. I would say that you can see them on TV a lot, but in person. Today we're pleased to have Troy Aikman, who's made time to be with us today to talk about, in addition to football, fatherhood and community. We all know Troy is the Cowboys Hall of Fame quarterback who led the team to 3 Super Bowl championships. We know his ever-present work on broadcasting, which will be taken to ESPN in the fall. But you may not be aware that he is dedicated to his 2 college-age daughters, Jordan and Allie, and he has that in common with President Bush, who also raised 2 daughters. I only have 1 daughter. I know that it gets exponentially harder when you add the second one. He's also dedicated to his community here in Dallas and in Henrietta, Oklahoma, where his family moved when he was 12. To guide the conversation, we're fortunate to have with us Joe Trahan, the lead anchor on WFAA-TV's sports department, and I've been on a panel moderated by Joe, and I know we're in for a great treat. So without anything more, please join me in welcoming to the stage Troy Aikman and Joe Trahan.
Good evening, everyone. How are we doing? Thanks so much for being here tonight. Troy, thank you. It is a pleasure to be here at the Bush Center. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Troy is so active with what he's got going on with his life. We are going to talk football. I do promise that. I couldn't do that here with what I do and with what I know you love. So we will talk football. However, my mission tonight is to have Troy share with you more of the 360-degree view of Troy Aikman. Besides being the Hall of Fame football player, the preeminent broadcaster, we want to tap into Troy Aikman, the father, Troy Aikman, the community member, and Troy Aikman, the businessman. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. Okay. I think a good place to begin, Troy, is with this. You're beginning with President Bush. How'd you first meet, and how would you characterize the relationship?
We first met. I was asked to go to the White House for the Easter egg roll over Easter weekend. And that was through Allie Beth Allman. Her daughter was working at the White House. And I was honored to be asked to be a part of that. My girls were pretty young, so I went. And then I got a chance to meet him. Well, I should say I met him for the first time when he was running for governor. He came by one of our practices in training camp in Austin and said hello. And I knew him then, of course, as the owner of the Texas Rangers. But when I really started to get to know him was on this Easter egg roll. I guess that's what they call it. But yeah, so got a chance to visit with him. He said, hey, I'm moving to Dallas. And I said, well, I'd heard you were. And he says, do you like to mountain bike? And I said, well, I never have. And he says, well, I want to go mountain bike riding with you. And I said, all right. So I bought I got home, first thing I did was buy a mountain bike, you know. I said, I'm going to be ready when President Bush asks me to go mountain bike riding with him. The mountain bike's still in the garage. I've never gone mountain bike riding with him, and I don't have it in me to say, hey, President, what's the deal? But I've played a fair amount of golf with him. Bill Hickey's here in the audience somewhere, and he's always in the foursome. And the president, he's competitive, and he always stacks the team. He likes to make sure that he's got an advantage on the number one tee. But I've played a lot of golf with him over the years, and then I've had him over to the house for dinners, and I consider him, I consider him a friend. But I think there are people that I know. I was thinking about this earlier today when I knew I was coming over here for this, and I would put the president, Roger Staubach, and Nolan Ryan in a category that not many men reach, and I think that they set an example that we, certainly myself, can aspire to be.
Yeah, that would be a pretty nice foursome, by the way.
It would.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be fantastic.
I could beat Roger, I know that. Of course, if he hears that, he's going to be hitting balls all day.
That's right.
Next month.
Till his hands bleed. Now, you received a wonderful gift from the president, and I know it's prominently displayed in your home. Tell us about it.
Yes, so the first night that he came to my house for dinner, I've got a little French bulldog. And he immediately comes over, and he's a real animal person, and so he's playing with Buster and spending some time with him. And then at the end of the evening, he started, kind of playing with Buster a little bit more, and he said, he was trying to get a picture of Buster, and Buster just wasn't cooperating very well. And he says, I need you to send me a picture of Buster, a good picture of Buster. And I said, okay. And I really wasn't sure why, but, and so I got it to him, and it was about 2 weeks later, he had painted a picture of Buster.
Wow.
And, he wrote a little note with it, and yeah, it's in my office. You can only imagine how much it means to me.
That's fantastic. I can't imagine, but that's fantastic. Again, a quick personal note for me. Thanks to everyone at the Bush Center for having me be a part of this night. It's fantastic. Preparing for it has been a delight. I've been very fortunate in the last several months. Troy and my path have crossed several times with everything that Troy has going on. And I put together a story on Troy that aired on WFAA last fall, and we'll have a clip from that later in the show. But I went back and I looked at some notes of that, and I spent some time with my note cards this morning to prepare for this evening's event, and that's how I got ready for it. I think we have a clip to show of how Troy got ready for tonight.
Yeah.
Just another Monday, huh, Troy?
That was today, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a surprise for you tomorrow.
Apparently, I did it all wrong. Now, was that a weight vest, Troy?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't always wear it, but I do from time to time.
We don't. For you, it's optional. For some of us, it's standard equipment. Now, we didn't prepare the same way for tonight's event. However, Troy and I share something really important in common, and that's fatherhood. We are both blessed with having a pair of daughters. Sophia is my oldest, Sydney is my next. He's got Jordan and Allie. Troy Aikman doesn't boast or brag on himself hardly at all in all the interviews I've done through all the years. However, I'm wondering if that changes when we talk about the girls. Can you update us with what's going on with Jordan and Allie?
Yeah, I'm real proud of them, as all parents are of their kids. They are 19 and 20. They just finished, my youngest just finished her first year here at SMU, loves it. And then my sophomore, they're 11 months apart. My sophomore, Jordan, she just finished her sophomore year at Washington and Lee. And yeah, they're both doing really well, doing great in school. They're like all fathers. I know Tony Fay sitting here on the front row. He's been through a similar situation to myself. I've been raising my girls since they're about 8 and 9. And so we have a really close relationship, and they've been everything to me. It's the football stuff's great, the broadcasting stuff's nice, and all that. But I really believe this, and I think most people do. Maybe not as many as I would like to believe, but for me, I feel that my legacy will be told by them. They're the ones who will tell my story long after I'm gone. It won't be, no disrespect, but it won't be Joe Trahan. It won't be the broadcasters. They'll obviously.
I'll be gone too.
Yeah. Well, if you don't start changing up your Mondays.
Exactly. Nice. Very nice.
So yeah, you just, as parents, you just try to make it as good as you can for your kids and teach them life's lessons and make them productive adults when they kind of go out on their own. And it's just, they're in that phase right now where, they're adults, but yet they're not quite, where you want them to be, and you're still trying to have some limits on them and all that. They're great. They've never given me 1 ounce of problems. I mean, they've been fantastic. Wow. And so yeah, fatherhood means everything to me.
I do want to talk game plan with being a girl dad, because I needed a game plan. I had to have one, and I knew, Troy, that I wanted to share with them and try and instill in them some grit to be prepared for what life would throw at them. However, I also didn't want to come over too heavy-handed and be too tough on them. So it was tough for me to navigate. How did you navigate it?
Well, the thing that becomes hard is, first of all, when they were young, I was asked to coach them in basketball. And as a former player, and the way that I'm wired and driven, that the girls were about 8 and 9. And, I'm out there trying to coach these girls up, and they're friends. There's 12 girls out there, and they're not paying attention. They're turning around and they're talking, and, that doesn't go over very well. So I couldn't get their attention. I lined them up, and I just ran them. And then they got done, and I said, listen, when I'm talking, you pay attention. There's time to go play with your friends, but we're here to learn basketball. And then they'd start talking some more, and get them on the line. I'd run them some more. And that night ended, and I remember going back to the car, and I could just tell my oldest, Jordan, she was the one who was like 9, and I could just tell there was the weight of the world was kind of on her shoulders, and I just knew that I could not do this any longer, because her friends, it was going to change the relationship with my girls. It was also going to change the relationship they were having with their friends, because, of this coach that was a little obsessed. So I then said, hey, I just can't do this. So, but when I would watch them play sports, I would get as far away from everybody as I could. I just did not want to watch the games with the other parents. I didn't want to hear all the commentary. A lot of parents want to talk about, hey, they're yelling at their kid, you got to do this, you got to do that. I never did. I never yelled at my kids about doing anything. I never tried to coach my kids. What I told them was, there's 3 things you're going to do, and you're going to give great effort, you're going to be a good teammate, and you're going to do what your coach says to do. And you do those 3 things, then nothing else, to me, really matters. It doesn't matter to me if you win, if you lose, if you don't get a hit, whatever the sport is that we're playing. But those are the 3 things that you can do each and every game, and those are the things that I think are really, really, really important. So I think, though, through sports, I know what sports meant to me. I think most everyone in this room probably played some level of sports and learned a lot. And I just felt that sports is something that kids learn a lot. They learn about teamwork. They learn about perseverance. They learn about getting knocked down. They learn about disappointment, getting back up, and kind of fighting through all that. And then I used to take my girls on walks. It was around this time of year. And I just said, hey, we're not going to spend the summers just sitting around in the house, in the air-conditioned house. We're going to get out and exercise a little bit. So I'd walk through Highland Park, and we'd walk 3.5 miles, and they were still right around 9, 10 years old. And then in the mornings, they'd say, Dad, is there any way we can go right now before it gets too hot? Because I'd go right in the heat of the day. And so we're on this walk one day, and I was in one of those moods where just being a dad and a little frustrated with them a little bit, and not doing some of the things that I felt that the coaches wanted them to do. So and I've told this story before, but we're walking along, and I say to Jordan, who's my oldest, I said, Jordan, I said, the coach has been asking you in lacrosse to do the wall ball drill, and I haven't seen you do it yet. You're supposed to do 100 times a day, and you haven't done that, you haven't done this, and I'm just wondering, you know, what's going on? And as we're walking along, I feel like there's no one behind me anymore. So I stop and turn around, and Jordan had come to a complete stop, and she's got her head down like she was really sad and sulking. And I come back over to her, and I said, darling, I said, what's wrong? And she says, Dad, I just want you to know, she says, I'm not going to be a professional athlete. And I said, you know what? There's no doubt in my mind that you're not going to be a professional athlete. But you are going to be something. You know, you're going to be a mom. You're going to be, you know, I don't know, you're going to go to college. You're going to be a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant, you know, whatever it is that you're going to be something in life. And whatever that is, you want to be the best at it that you can be. And the only way that happens is you got to put in the time, and you got to put in the effort, and you got to work at it. And so, you know, those things like that, I guess that's where my influence on them. But as far as trying to push them into anything, I just have not. I've really kind of allowed them to make their decisions, and fortunately they've made good ones. But I know at the end of the day it's going to be their life, and I want it to be one that they're proud of. But I also, you know, as a parent, you try to direct them as best you can.
As we take Troy down memory lane a little bit, we do want to share some of Troy's memories, and we're going to do so by having you take a look at this. Jordan and Allie there, that was a post on Instagram last year on Father's Day, which of course is a week from Sunday, but Troy, I like the way you call it Daughter's Day. When did you start doing that? Where'd you come up with that?
A few years ago. You know, I'll be honest, it's hard for me to talk about my girls. I always get real emotional. Apologize for that, but
you're not the only one.
But yeah, you know, just kind of knowing, you know, their background, some of the things that they've been through, and then me trying to be a father to help. You know, help them navigate some of that.
Yeah.
So, you know, Father's Day is special. They of course honor me on Father's Day, and you know they've honored me on Mother's Day. Yeah, so I did that video, you know, primarily as an honor to them because of they make being a father pretty easy.
Well, the memories flooded back for me when I watched it. I remembered those tea parties, and I remembered the karaoke at the house, and I remembered constructing that Barbie Playhouse Christmas of 2012, the one with the elevator that it took me 4 hours to put together.
I was going to say the one that took all night.
Absolutely, and I'll be gosh darned if I wasn't going to play Barbie with those girls after I spent all that time putting that house together. It was going to happen.
Yeah.
When you think about some of the moments that you tried to create, because, you know, with the sort of lifestyle that I have doing what I do, those moments are hard to come by because time is so precious. How did you go about trying to create those moments with your girls?
I don't know that there was any real conscious trying to create those moments. I like tradition. I do like that. I came from a family that didn't have a lot of tradition. But I dated a girl through high school and a good part of college that they had tradition and family traditions, and so tried to, really have wanted to do that. I love that. I love that about families, because it gets carried on to the kids, and the kids, then they have their own kids, and no, this is how we always did it, and it's nice. It just keeps getting passed down. So that would be number one, and then two would be just when we travel a lot together, we do a lot together, and just try to spend as much time as we can together. I mean, my girls, I don't know when it ends. I know that when it ended for me, like, we didn't take a lot of family vacations when I was growing up, but whatever we did, I think the last one I ever went on, I was probably about 12, and now you just wonder, when do these kids not want to keep going on these family? When are they going to say, hey, Dad, we really don't want to, and I'm not going to be hurt when it happens. I might be relieved a little bit. I mean, I don't know, but no. So we've got some trips planned. It was kind of cool. My oldest Jordan turns 21 in August, and so I told her, I said, hey, let's do a trip and do something special for your 21st birthday, and you can bring some friends and whoever you want. It's your birthday. Let's make it nice, whatever you want it to look like, and a lot of her friends are doing internships, or they've got family vacations of their own, so they're not. So as it's turned out, it's just Jordan, Allie, and myself that are going on this birthday party. And I said, "Are you sure?" I said, "This is your 21st birthday. Is this?" And she said, "Dad," she said, "That's what I really want that for my 21st birthday." So. Which was pretty cool. So now, I'm scrambling because you got to have some stuff planned. I mean,
this can't be the regular, go down to Mexico and hang out.
Yeah, no, that's right.
It's different. You and I, Troy, you kind of alluded to it. We're in about that same spot. My oldest just graduated high school. The other one's a sophomore in high school. But I can see in the not so distant future that they're going to enter that next phase of their lives and start making, more of their own lives. Is there something that you tried to reiterate to them when they were growing up? What's the one thing that you want them to think back and said, man, Dad told me this so many times, and you wanted it to stick with them?
Yeah, I don't know that there's any one particular thing. And I think that what I found interesting already is that there's things that they come back to me on that they feel were things that I would always reiterate to them, and I don't necessarily recall that, but it stuck with them. Like if I said something, it really stuck with them, and so that part of it's good. I think the biggest thing, Joe, is that from the time they were real little, and especially when I went through my divorce, because then as a single dad raising these girls, I just didn't want to mess it up. So I read a lot of books. The father-daughter relationship is really critical. I mean, it's a really important relationship. And so what I found was that it was important then that however I wanted them to be treated as they got older from boyfriends or, future husbands, that I was then going to be the example of that in what their expectations were going to become. And so I've always been this way. I'm old school anyway. So when I was on a date, I always open the door for the girl and, all that stuff. And some, well, the California girls don't like it too much. They don't like walking in front of you. And they say, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm letting you go. Well, why are you doing that? Because that's why you see a lot of guys 3 feet out in front of their wives or dates in California. I don't. But so anyway, when we'd go to get in the car, I would always open up the door for my girls. I'd get over there and open the door. Well, my youngest, she's a little bit of the two. She's a little bit more of a free spirit, and she would race. It became a game where she would race to the door because she was going to beat me open that door, you know. And I finally had to get a little firm with her and just tell her, I said, Allie, this is not a game, okay? Dad opens your door. Dad will always open your door. And at some point when you're older and Dad's not opening your door, someone else is going to be opening your door for you. Mm-hmm. And if they're not, then I'm not sure it's someone that I'm going to want you spending a lot of time around. And so they do. They definitely have that one. That one's etched in their minds.
Yeah, the modeling is instrumental. That's really important. I've tried to embed this message in my girls' collective conscience. I always tell them, well, you know right from wrong. I mean, you grew up in this house. I think I've said it about 100,000 times, right? Because I want them to hear that voice when they're far away.
Yeah.
Well, you know right from wrong.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the one thing that I've tried to continually embed with them. And I'll leave with this on a light note. The coolest thing about being #GirlDad, what is it?
Oh, man. I'm not planning on having any more kids, but if I did, I'd want it to be a girl. I really do. And I don't know that I would have always said that. I mean, the Aikman name in my family ends if I don't have a son. But I don't feel pressure to have one, and I don't really, I don't really want one. Hey, I don't want a girl right now either. You know, I don't. Let's not get the wrong idea here. Joe Buck is my broadcast partner. He's 2 years younger than me, and he's got 4-year-old twin boys. And I said, God bless you.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I couldn't do that again. But no, the girl dad. What I love about it, I loved it right from the beginning, is that I just knew that relationship, I was going to hug on them when they were born until the day I die. I mean, and we got in this habit, and I love it. The girls, every time they walk into a room, they come give me a hug. You know, if they come, as soon as they walk in the house, if they've been gone, they come give me a hug. If they come down in the mornings for breakfast, they come immediately, they give me a hug. If they've been upstairs doing homework and I'm in my office, they come over and give me a hug when they come around. And I love that. And that, to me, that's been the coolest part of it.
Yeah, I don't have boys, but I suspect boys wouldn't do that. They wouldn't care.
Yeah.
They wouldn't care. They'd go on to the next thing. Let's switch gears here and talk community a little bit. You were born in California, moved to Henrietta, Oklahoma when you were 12. Describe that transition.
Well, I loved California when I was growing up. Lived in Cerritos, California. I was born in West Covina. We bounced around a little bit, but we landed in Cerritos when I was first grade, and was there through 7th grade. I moved, as you said, to Oklahoma when I was in 8th grade. But played with a lot of great baseball players, many of whom went on to play college. Some of them went on to play professionally. It was just a hotbed for baseball players, and I was a good player, and I loved the sport. And right away, sports was kind of my thing, and especially baseball. And played football and basketball, but baseball was my first love. And then my father grew up in Iowa, and he was working pipeline in California. There was a guy who worked on his crew who was from Henrietta, Oklahoma. And so one summer, early on, I was about first grade. It was right after we got to Cerritos. He goes back with him to Henrietta and bought 180 acres. And so for years, every year we heard we were going to move to Oklahoma, but we never did. And so when we were hearing it there at the end, we still thought, yeah, we've been hearing this for 6, 7 years now, and we just don't ever make the move. And then we picked up and moved. So it was in the summer. So I went from a kid who would ride his bike wherever. I mean, it was like my car. And we played over the line baseball. You know, we were always getting together after school, and just everything was sports all day long. And had a lot of great coaches and really a lot of great players, really talented players, many of whom were older than me, and that helped with my development as well. And then when we moved to Henrietta, we moved way out on a farm, this 180 acres, and everything changed. You know, my whole life changed, and I wasn't real happy about it, to be honest with you. I mean, I just thought that, man, how am I going to get noticed here? Right. and I can't ride my bike and can't go see anybody. So I was out there by myself, and that summer, my father and I and 2 other carpenters built our house. My dad was one of these guys who could just do anything. I mean, he can fix anything, he can build anything, he can, you know, build an engine, anything you want. And so he was the guy doing most of the work on building the house. But I had chores like you would have on a farm. It was a working farm. We had cattle, horses, pigs, chickens, goats. We kind of had it all at one time or another. And so in addition to building our house, there were also the chores that had to be taken care of with the animals and hauling hay. And so I spent every summer hauling hay at a young age, learned a lot. My dad was really tough. He's still with us. He's 83, and he's still pound for pound the toughest human I know. Wow. And he treated me as a grown man really from the time I was like 6 years old. And, you know, some of that's really good because you definitely, you know, I've always been somewhat of an old soul and a little more mature than those of my classmates, and I think that was part of it. But then you also get a lot taken away in the process of that as well. Yeah, I think that experience is really what propelled me, even though it was no longer baseball. Our baseball program wasn't all that good. Football was king. We weren't a great football team either, for that matter. But it was my dad's discipline with me, I think, that motivated me and drove me to go on to do what ultimately I did. And I just have always, work ethic has never been an issue for me. I've never mind putting in time. I almost wear that as a badge of honor. I think deep down I've always wanted to prove to my father that I was as tough as he was. I almost quit playing football. Going into 9th grade, I was only going to play baseball and basketball. I was still hung up on baseball at the time. And football was kind of like, yeah, football's okay, but it just wasn't as fun as the other sports. And my dad rolled into town out at the farm. Sign-ups were that day for 8th grade, 9th grade. And he said, hey, he says, sign-ups are today. And I was hoping he wouldn't even know, but and I said, yeah, they are, because you're signing up, right? And I was partly scared of my father as well, and I wasn't going to tell him. I just didn't have it in me to say, Dad, I'm not going to play football. Football was the only sport he liked, so he never missed a football game. He'd make occasional basketball game, but didn't make many other sports. And so I said, yeah, of course I'm playing. So I go down and played, and then the rest is history. But the experience in Henrietta, to go from the town that I went to in Cerritos at 35, it was about 4,500 people there when I was there. I settled in real quick. I met my best friend, who is still my best friend, at 12 years old. Now 43 years we've been best friends. Close with a number of people there. And I just feel that what I am and who I am came about being raised in a small town and how you're treated. And, you know, it's much, much different. I wish my girls could experience that, but Henrietta's a different town now than the one that I grew up in.
So part of the Engage series in terms of its mission is to provide you things that you don't know when you walk out the door. So let's enter that portion real quick, because when you mentioned your dad, is it true that your dad wanted you to be a pro bull rider?
Well, I don't know if ultimately he wanted it to extend to being a professional bull rider, but when I moved to Henrietta, have you heard of Jim Shoulders? Jim Shoulders is for those that haven't, he's a world champion cowboy, and he lives in Henrietta, Oklahoma. He has since passed, but he lived in Henrietta, Oklahoma. He was the one in the Miller Lite commercials with Billy Martin, and real famous cowboy. And he lived in Henrietta, and he had, like, I had grown up going to basketball camps, football camps, baseball camps. Jim Shoulders had a bull riding camp. and now, remind you, I came from Southern California, where I went to the beach in the summers. And now I'm out on this farm, and my dad comes in, and he says, hey, I want to sign you up for Jim Shoulders' bull riding camp. And I was 12. I said, bull riding? He said, yeah. And I said, Dad, I've never even seen a bull. I mean, I hadn't. We had some cows on our. I said I've never even seen a bull. I said I'm not riding a bull. Okay, you know I was scared of them, but that's was,
the line.
I was not getting on a bull, and they ended up having to cancel. Like a few years later, they had to cancel the camp because they couldn't afford the insurance anymore. I mean, there's so many kids that are breaking legs and arms. I mean, you can only imagine these kids getting thrown off these bulls, you know. So it was short-lived.
So many decisions that were made in Henrietta that really impacted the future lives of Cowboy fans everywhere. Can you imagine?
Well, another one was my dad was a welder, and he literally was like the Babe Ruth of welders. I mean, like if there's a welder Hall of Fame, he's Jim Brown. You know, I mean, he could weld. There was one time my sister took a car in and the muffler kept falling off and they weren't doing it good. My dad finally took it in and he's getting all over this guy and the guy says you can't weld upstream. And I don't know if you can or you can't, but he said, you know, this guy was telling my dad you couldn't. And my dad was like, you're crazy. So he welded this thing and the guy was totally amazed. And everybody I know who knows welding says your dad was like the best to ever do it. So one summer, I'm 13 years old. He comes home, he says, I've got you a summer job. And I said, great, what is it? And he says, you're gonna weld. And like bull riding, I've never welded. I mean, and I said, Dad, I don't even know how to weld. He says, I'm gonna take you over. You're gonna weld for the boss. He's gonna see your work, and he said, you just listen to what I tell you. Well, that went without saying. I mean, when my dad spoke, I mean, I listened, and so we go over. The boss is standing back here. We go over to wherever it was I was going to weld. We put our lids on. My dad was telling me in my ear what to do. All right, slower, slower, slower. You know, all right, that's good. Keep going, keep going. And then I'd get done and go, okay, you know, hammer it, you know, brush it. So I did all this stuff. And then he says, okay, and he calls the guy over. He says, and the guy looked at it and said, you're hired. And I welded all summer long. And at 13, and I really did not know what I was doing. I got a little better. I mean, I think I could put something together, but yeah. So that's. How many more of those stories you want?
Just one more. I got one more. I got one more. And if you saw the story I did on Troy, you already know this one. But how'd you become the Oklahoma State typing champion?
So. That has become, it's grown. I mean, that was, I think I was the county champion, and now it's the whole state of Oklahoma. But I usually, when people bring it up, I let it go. You know, I let it slide and say, okay, well, I'll be state champion now. No, but I took typing 1 my sophomore year. And some other buddies of mine were in the class, and my mom was a typesetter at the newspaper. So I don't know if it's hereditary or not, but by the reaction, I don't think it is. So I took typing, and the teacher that was teaching it, her brother was the high school football coach at Jenks High School, which is a great powerhouse outside of Tulsa. And so she loved football. And I would type. I'd get through my assignments real fast. I just picked it up real quick, and it was easy for me. And then I'd get done with the assignment. I'd just go up and sit with her, and we'd just talk football, you know. And the whole rest of the class would be back there kind of pounding away on the assignment. But I loved it so much, and I loved her, that then my sophomore year, my sister was going to be in the class. All the best-looking girls at that time were all a year ahead of me. And my girlfriend was a year ahead of me, but there was a lot of pretty girls that were in that class. And they were all taking typing too. And so I said, you know, I'll take typing. I love typing too. So I took typing too. Well, then they're having this contest coming up. My sister, this is why it might be hereditary, because my sister, who was a senior that year, I was a sophomore, she was a great typist, and she was the best in the class. And so they were having this contest. It was more of a regional contest. And typing was one. They had accounting. They had all these, different programs. And Tammy, my sister, didn't want to go. She said, Troy, I really don't want to go. She says, I don't like to compete. You're used to that. You go instead. So I said, all right. I was just thinking it would give me a day out of school. So I went into the class, and I was the only guy in the class. I mean, there was kids from all over the area of different schools. I was the only one in the class, and I thought I did pretty good, but I didn't think I was my best. I mean, I thought I was pretty good, but and didn't think much else of it. And then at the end of the day, they bring everybody in this big auditorium, and they hand out the awards. And then they get to the typing award, and they said, and the winner is Troy Aikman. And I knew I was the only guy that would have been in that class. So I'm kind of walking down there going, well, this is a little embarrassing. But yeah, I got that award, I will say, has gotten a lot of mileage. People.
Yeah, I believe it. I think now's a good time to share part of that story I did on Troy and the music festival he's putting together called Highway to Henrietta. This aired last fall on WFAA. Check it out. You moved from Cerritos, California here to the farm. What was it like growing up here?
Well, it was different from where I came from. I thought, man, life has really changed, and I didn't view it for the better, quite honestly. I had dreams of being a professional athlete, wasn't real sure that was even going to be in the cards at that point going forward.
It didn't take long, though, for a turning point.
Once I got to school and made some friends, I felt like I had lived here my whole life. Thank you so much. It is awesome to be back in Henrietta.
Aikman starred on the Fighting Hens football team.
When I'd play in those football games down there at Cameron Field.
And it was apparent early on to everyone, Aikman was just different.
What distinguished him from his peer group?
Well, he was about a half a head taller than everybody else.
Mary Beth Morris taught Aikman geometry at Henrietta High.
He was very much a leader. He just saw what he wanted. He'd just go for it. He was like laser focused.
The seeds of future greatness and Super Bowl glory planted and rooted while Aikman lived and worked on that farm.
I'd never been around horses. I'd never been around pigs.
It made him.
A lot of what I feel that I am was because of my time spent here in Henrietta, Oklahoma. Whenever they say, where are you from? I don't ever hesitate. It's Henrietta, Oklahoma. So.
Speaking of gratitude, now Aikman intent on giving back in a bigger way than ever.
Do something for the city. Give the city a shot in the arm.
We've never had anything like this, and it's beyond my wildest dreams.
I'm hoping you guys have heard of him before. I think maybe you have.
Returning to his alma mater to make the surprise announcement.
He goes by the name of Blake Shelton.
So that was back at the high school when Troy announced that the music festival was going to come to Henrietta. That music festival is this weekend in Henrietta, Oklahoma. Yes, indeed. Yeah. So, I mean, there you see Blake Shelton, Pat Green, Josh Abbott, great names, George Dunham, and the Bird Dogs. They're going to be there. Of course, many of you know George from the ticket. We see Mike Reiner down here. Hey, Mike, how you doing? Good to see you.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah. So it's going to be a fantastic event. And Troy, I know how important it is to you. I know how important it is to the people there, too, because I drove to be there that day, and I met a lot of people who are going to benefit so much from what you're doing. But, Troy, why did you think now was the right time to do it?
Well, the way it kind of came about was when I first got to Dallas, I'd done some stuff for the town. They were in desperate need of a locker room, weight room, and so I built that for them. I think I bought them some uniforms, and back when I was playing, the shoes just got, I'm sure it was like that in a lot of towns in Oklahoma, Texas, the shoes just got recycled from one year to the next, and you just chose, you didn't get new shoes. It's not the way that it is now. So, these small towns are operating on a string shoe budget, so it's hard on them. So I got involved in some of those things early on, but I've done some things a lot in Dallas, done a lot of things in Dallas to benefit different communities and programs, things that are meaningful to me, and I've got my own foundation as well. And then I've given back to UCLA and was just thinking about it. I'd had a class reunion the last 2 years at my restaurant in Arlington, and when it ended last year, we had a number of kids that weren't able to come for a variety of reasons, but some of the reasons were because they couldn't make the 3-hour drive. And I thought that, you know, for us to be having a high school reunion in Arlington, Texas, just seemed counterintuitive, that maybe we should be doing something there in Henrietta. And my best friend, Darren, who went to high school with me, as I said earlier, we were talking about it. And I said, you know, let's do something back home in Henrietta. I said, I haven't done much there in a while. And I think that I can get a band, a small local band, and we can find a venue and make it kind of cool. And then he and I were having margaritas that night. And so one conversation led to another. And then I said, you know, I think we can do even bigger than that. I think that we could get Pat Green. We can turn this into like a big music festival. So it sounded great, man. I walked out of that restaurant that night thinking, man, we were on to something big. But then I reached out to Tony and I said, hey, can you meet me for lunch? I said, I've got something I want to run by you and see what you think. So he met me for lunch, and I explained to him what had happened. We'd had this reunion. Here's what we're thinking. And I said, I think that, you know, we can do it big. And I said, do you think I'm crazy for thinking this way? And I knew he'd be a straight shooter with me. I mean, I've got all the respect in the world for Tony. And he said, I don't think you're crazy at all. He said, I think we can do this. He says, tell me why you want to do it. And I said, I just feel like it's time to reconnect with my hometown. I mean, they've never been far from me, but I just don't get there. I used to play in a golf tournament every year in June, and then that had kind of gone by the wayside. And so I said, I don't have family there anymore in Henrietta. So I said, I just want to reconnect with Henrietta. And he said it well. He says, you want to put Henrietta on the map? I said, yeah. So off we went. That's where it began. That was a discussion we had last April or May, whenever it was, and we've been going at it ever since. So it has turned into, you know, it's gone as I thought that it might, but it has surpassed my expectations, because when you put in a call to Blake Shelton, I had Pat Green, who's awesome, you know, love the guy, and I've got a number of friends, like I mentioned earlier, Wade Bowen and Stoney LaRue and Steve Helms, and, you know, the list goes on. I mean, I could fill the day, but I just really felt like if there was a chance to bring in a real big-time Oklahoma headliner, and Blake Shelton was my first choice, and he's the guy. As much as Tony has meant to the success of this, I put in a text to Blake. I was just getting ready to leave my hotel to go present Jimmy Johnson into the Hall of Fame. And I texted him and said, hey, Blake, I'm putting on this music festival in Henrietta, Oklahoma, and I need an Oklahoma presence as a headliner, and you're my first choice. And I'm hoping you'll do it. And he got back to me before I even left the room. And he said, I'm in.
Wow.
And not only is he in, but I've had others who have done things for me for charity, and they've asked that, you know, we cover their expenses or a nominal fee, and I get all that. I mean, that's what they should do. And Blake won't take $1. Wow. I mean, he just said, you know, he's doing it, and it's just incredible. I mean, a guy who's getting pulled in as many different directions as he is to do this for me. But really, if you know Blake is so proud to be from Oklahoma that yes, it's not where he lived or grew up, but I think to him it's all the same, and it's helping his state. And you know, once he got on board, then, you know, shoot. Now we're a big event.
Absolutely. I mean, with Blake headlining, it's going to be a fantastic event. but I'm still wondering about one other wonderfully talented artist and if he's going to show up. Take a look at this clip.
Driving down 66.
But Aikman knows a little something about the genre.
This old pickup.
Oklahoma Nights, the smash single. Are you going to sing Is Oklahoma Nights coming back?
Oklahoma Nights.
In hindsight, it didn't really bring out the best in me, and
Right.
so I'm not saying I won't get up and sing, but it won't be Oklahoma Nights.
So, are we going to have a remix?
I don't know, Mike, you can weigh in on this. I just think that I got a voice to sing more things like Chris Christopherson sings. I got to hear some. So yeah, that song was, I hate to even admit this, that song was written especially for me. There was
We promised things you wouldn't know, and I think we've delivered.
And that one, I had some artist friends, I won't go into names, but I had some artist friends that said, hey, I said, what's the key if you're going to be able to sing a song and really, really make it, where people really like it? And they say you've got to be in, you got to be in character. You got to feel it. You got to, and you can't feel anything in that song. I mean, it's supposed to be some love interest, but it has well been singing it to you, Joe. I mean,
well, yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? All right, so the singing thing with Oklahoma Nights might not work. However, as we transition to some of the business things you got going on, I'm sure you guys have heard this 8 beer that Troy launched has taken off.
Thank you.
Listen, I know a little something about that marketplace, and it's fantastic. I got to tell you. What made you want to get into that realm? Why beer?
Well, I did work at a beer distributorship in college. I've done some beer campaigns for Miller over the years, some national campaigns. I do like beer, but I never imagined that I'd be making my own beer. But through a mutual friend, I met my now partners, and one of them has made a career in the beer business. He was president of a brewery, and what sold me on them, my business philosophy over the years, it's evolved, is I've been involved in some great products, great technologies that I thought were game changers, and I had people that couldn't execute it. And it's not a whole lot like a sports team. I mean, you've got to have good people if you're going to be good at anything, and especially when it comes to business. So I found out real quick that I bet on people. I mean, I really do. And you got to have the product, and you got to have, but people first and foremost. So I said, well, I don't know that I'm really all that interested in making a beer. I'm pretty mindful of what I put in my body and my workouts and all that. So I said, it need to be consistent with who I am, but I want to meet these people. So I read their bios. They're brilliant. I mean, these 3 partners that I have are just really, really smart, Harvard educated and Princeton, and, real methodical. They've got great resumes. They're young. And so at the end of the day, I said, you know what, if we can make a beer that's consistent with who I am, if it's a light beer, low calorie, low carb beer, then I'll be interested in taking the next step. Let's see where it might go. But it also, I've never believed you do something just for the sake of doing it. If we couldn't make it better or do it differently, why is our beer going to be different? If we couldn't do that, then just making a beer in and of itself wasn't going to be of interest to me either. So those were kind of the marching orders. Off we went, and we were able to achieve it. And so what was interesting to me was something that I was excited about. When we met with distributors, when we met with retailers, they were even more excited about it than I was. And it only got me even more excited when I realized there's a real need in the marketplace, because what was on the market had been on the market for a long time. It had gotten a little tired, just felt like it was time for something new and something fresh. And what makes 8 differently, some of you have heard this before, but for those of you that haven't, 8, we have no adjuncts in our beer, and we are the only widely available beer that can say that. And so if you're like me, you'd say, well, oh, great, what's an adjunct? And so I'll answer that for those of you that don't know. So we don't add any corn, rice, syrup, or sugars to our beer. It's 100% all malt beer. It's 100% organic grains. We use antioxidant hops. And so we're still at 90 calories. The measurables were important because some people, that's all they look at. They just, and I will tell you, so we're 90 calories, 2.6 carbs. There are some people who, like Budweiser, for instance, and not a knock on Budweiser, but Budweiser just came out with a 0-carb beer. Now, the only way you can get a beer to 0 carbs is you're loading it up with a bunch of sugar and a bunch of other stuff in order to get the numbers down. So when you get into that battle of who's going to have the lowest carbs or who's going to have the lowest calories, to get much lower than where we're at, you're having to go back to adding all these adjuncts, which is not good. And so I always say, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that beer is good for you, but our beer is a better for you beer. So if that makes sense. So, I believe, I do believe, like I said, I don't like the word strict. I'm very disciplined into my workouts and my training and what I eat and getting proper rest and staying hydrated and all of those things. But I also believe that life is about balance. And I know that beer brings people together. I know that there's moments in life that should be celebrated, whether that's life's victories, whether that's time with family and friends. And I think I probably speak for most people here that when you have those moments and you want to share those special times, it usually does include an adult beverage. So for me, that generally is a beer. And so this is a beer that I can have and not feel like I'm compromising the work that I've put in during the week. And that's as honest and as direct as I can be about why I did it and why I like what we're doing. And it's resonated. People who don't even really like beer have tried it, and they say that they really like it. And so I'm excited about it. It's caught on like wildfire here in Texas. We're exclusive to Texas, and we just got to make more of it. It's selling pretty quick.
Yeah, keep up with that demand, right?
Yep.
All right, I promised football. We don't have a whole lot of time left. I won't hold you to any initial analysis. I know it's way too early in the game. How good are the Cowboys going to be, Troy?
I think they should. I've been saying they've been great for a while now. No, I think they'll be really good. I love Dak Prescott. I say it every chance I get. I think that when you want teams, at least for me, I want to root for a team when you can root for the people who are wearing the uniform and feel good about them. And Dak is that guy. He's a great leader. His teammates love playing for him. They've lost some players, but they're a talented team. And the only thing separating the Cowboys really right now is they're good enough. They've been good enough at different times to do it all. They just haven't played their best football when it's mattered most, and that's not always. It's easy to say they got to do that, but how do you do it? And I think they will, but until they do, you just don't know. But they were good enough last year. I thought they were good enough last year to win it all.
Absolutely.
Well,
listen, it's absolutely flown by for me. It's been a very quick 50 minutes. The insight's been fantastic. A little housekeeping before I let you go. Go to highwaytohenrietta.com to purchase your tickets to the big event. It's this weekend. It all benefits education and community initiatives there in Troy's hometown of Henrietta, Oklahoma. One big thank you to NexPoint for endowing the Engage at the Bush Center series. Thank you so much. I've also been asked to mention the next Engage event, which is September 21st. That's Bill Broden, author of the New York Times bestseller Red Notice and Freezing Point. He's going to come back to the Bush Center on September 21st. That promises to be a thought-provoking night. He'll talk about some of the latest developments in Russia and with President Vladimir Putin. This one's almost sold out, so head to bushcenter.org to reserve those seats. Final word, Troy Aikman.
Yeah, I would just like to say thank you. It was an honor to be asked to be here tonight. I really didn't know what to expect as far as who would want to come listen. who would want to come listen to me talk? But thank you for coming. It does mean a lot. And hopefully you enjoyed it, and it didn't put a damper on your Monday night. So
Remember, on your way out today, check out the Liberty and Laughter. It's a special exhibit along with a collection of President Bush's art that's entitled Waxing Poetic, Expressions in Cold Wax. Finally, how about it one more time for the great Troy Aikman.
thank you. Thank you.